Hello and welcome back to the Filler podcast, or should I call it, Dan, the Keinan Filler podcast, because he is back. He earned Villa a draw right at the death against West Brom. I am here, as always, with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm not bad at all. Those of you watching on YouTube, I will just explain to you off air the new settings. This is my digs where I stay in Manchester, so I'm working up here at the moment. So unfamiliar settings, but got the mic, got the lights. It's all come up with me, and I was sat here before we came on air opening some panini stickers. We went round to the co-op earlier, and we grabbed
Damn.
some earlier, and it's going to be a good pod, mate. Look at
There
that.
we
There
go.
he is, live in the flash. Tyrone, hot off the press. Got Jack the other day as well. So we're basically
What
all
a
done on the
pull.
Villa front. So, yeah, it's been a great evening, mate. But even better for yourself because it's been a while since you were there. What was the last game? Arsenal?
Arsenal, mate. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a
been
while.
a minute.
Obviously, we won that as well. Early goal in that game. And today, I mean, it was completely different, wasn't it, Dan? Before we get into the game, though, there are some things we need to say. First of all, shout out to you, Dan,
Of course.
for appearing on BBC WN today on the phone in. That was great. I didn't manage to listen, but as always, I am sure you represented the Villa Filler as well as possible because
Flying the flag.
it's just what we do,
Absolutely.
man. And speaking of the Villa Filler as well, guys, I have to give a massive shout out to my guy Anthony, right, working on security at Villa Park. What a guy! Recognised me in my car, said he loves the podcast. I forgot to get your name first time around, Anthony. Made sure I got it as I was leaving. And yeah, just really appreciate you, really appreciate the support, appreciate the job you do at Villa. I'm really short of breath. I don't know why. But yeah, Anthony, you are the real MVP. You're the reason why we do this kind of stuff. So it really it means the world that you took time out of your day to speak to me about the Villa Filler. It's our first. I don't want to say fan encounter because that sounds a bit corny, doesn't it? I don't want to big us up at all,
No.
Dan. But again, it was a really humbling experience. So shout out to you, Anthony. And I mean, let's get into the Villa Filler, Dan, because it's already late night. You guys love the late night Villa Fillers. We're here. And of course, it had to happen. A decent result, relatively decent. Take that with a grain of salt. On a day where we can't get a podcast out straight away, Dan. That is always the way, isn't it? This Villa side. And I mean, the first half of the first half, I'd say, Dan, Villa attacked this game so impressively. Like it was almost a faultless performance for the opening sort of 20, 25 minutes, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. I think we came up the blocks really well, and we were playing quite nicely, and we deservedly went ahead. I think the penalty was probably a little bit soft on reflection. Ross goes down, but I think he's well within his rights too. It's not the worst decision we've seen this season. It's certainly not as bad as the decision that we saw later on in the half. But it was a really nice move from Villa, and that's what's sort of been glossed over with the penalty and with Anwar scoring. Is that if you actually look at the passage of play that builds up to that goal, it was really nice. And Villa really came at this game in a way that we haven't in a little while. And I think Ross certainly stamped his sort of presence on the game early on, which I felt like he needed to do in winning that penalty. So that was good to see. And that, obviously he didn't pick up the goal or assist that I'm sure he would have liked, but he still contributed to this performance. And I think that was sort of, I think we were surprised to see him included, weren't we, in that starting 11? And so it was good that he sort of repaid the faith from the manager, even in just doing that, which contributed to the game. But no, I thought Villa came at it well, and I don't think we've particularly. I say this having just come after a game where we scored after 20 seconds, but I don't think we've started games particularly well recently, and so that was nice to see.
Absolutely, Dan. And Ross Barkley, in my opinion, deserves a lot of credit. I tried not to kind of look at Twitter and see what they were saying too much because I couldn't believe some of the things some people were coming out with. I've got to be honest, guys. I'm not sure if we were watching the same games at all, but I thought Ross Barkley, of course, was not at his best, but it's good to see him a bit more confident tonight, receiving the ball on the half turn a bit better. Sure, he was dispossessed a few times, but I don't think anyone can disagree. This is the best we've seen Ross Barkley post-injury, which is, I guess, a positive in itself. Bertrand Traore, someone again who seemingly took a fair few pelters on Twitter, Dan, who I thought again didn't really do too much wrong. you kind of know what you're getting with Bertie, don't you? Not necessarily the most hard-working winger, but some moments of brilliance that were encapsulated in this match. And I thought he played a role relatively well today. And obviously, I mean, you don't score the saucy goal against Albion in the reverse fixture and not warrant a start. There's some of the decisions that were kind of made by Villa fans before the game on who should start. I find it quite funny actually, because obviously everyone's saying drop Ross, this, that, Ross wins the penalty, all this kind of stuff. Bertrand Traore put in plenty of crosses, missed probably a really good opportunity in the far post, I'd say, in the first half, I think it was. But, it was a solid performance from him. And it was interesting as well, because after weeks, Dan, of going, begin at 10, after we get that at Man City, we get a little tease, and then we're back to the double pivot of McGinn. Having said that, McGinn's passing tonight, for me, off the scale, Dan. I mean, we'll talk about the midfield and the sort of overall role and how we felt the midfield performed just a bit later on, but McGinn's left foot, sometimes you forget how magical it is. He was fizzing balls left, right, and centre, and they were very accurate. It was really good to see, man.
Yeah, I thought Villa. I thought It was a really transitional game, wasn't it? And I think whenever we have these games where you've been at the ground, mate, and we've, the rest of us have been watching on TV, it's really interesting to see how situations change, because watching a game in person and watching a game on a TV really changes your entire perspective on it, doesn't it? And
100%.
I thought Villa it became a really transitional game, and I think that almost suits McGinn in a way. It almost suits it because he has got a fantastic range of passing, and when the spaces do open up and he's allowed to sort of be a bit more progressive on the ball, and this is actually probably a game where we'd like to have seen him in some more advanced positions, because it's when you're not facing a clogged up defence. You've got times to sort of get your head up. He's got to get that little arse out, do that little shuttle run that he likes to do. And I think we certainly saw him do some nice things today. I think, however, the fact it was a transition-based game speaks quite negatively to our midfield, because Dana would like to have seen us get a grip on the game more strongly. I think it made for a brilliant game for the neutral, but we never had a continued spell of 10 minutes where we were the dominant force, not just in creating shots and creating chances, but in possession. And that was a little bit disappointing for me. I think we allowed West Brom to break with too much ease. I think we allowed West Brom to set up their own little periods in the game where they were the dominant force slightly more easily than I'd have liked. And I think it is the midfield where this side needs the most work, because on the ball, I think there's still a little bit to be desired, but I think, mate, the stats speak for themselves. And I think I think people will look at this performance quite negatively, but we had 24 shots to BAGGIES 10, 11 on target to their 4, 71% possession. They made 233 passes. We more than doubled that with 534. Had a pass accuracy of 84% as a team, which is decent compared to BAGGIES 60. We had 11 corners to their 4. And so you can see that Villa, in terms of creating chances on the offensive end, did their job. I just don't think that we managed to contain the game and play it on our terms as you need to in games like this, especially in derby games, because you could see that West Brom grew in confidence as the game went on.
Yeah, and I think Villa wanted to play that transitional game down, because that's where we've seen Villa at their best, but it doesn't always work, because it's against a side like West Brom, who are more than happy to sit back, pick their counter-attacks wisely as they did. And I actually think the game management from West Brom was really good tonight. Sam Allardyce knew what he was doing. They got the penalty, which, in my opinion, was very soft. I had a very clear view of it. Maitland-Niles going down on, I don't even want to say a Conser challenge. Conser's going to play the ball. It's a really difficult one. But if you give a referee the chance to level a game up, you always know they're going to take it. It's frustrating. It shouldn't happen, but it does happen. I mean, we saw that against Manchester City with Cash's red card, didn't we? Referees, they feel obliged to even things up, especially after giving away a penalty so early on in the game, Dan. But West Brom managed this game really effectively, and they exploited the weaknesses in Villa's in Villa's side really well. A player who I highlighted in the preview, Dan, Conor Gallagher, don't have the running stats, but I imagine he's topped the charts on that one. He covered so much ground. He really did make McGinn and Louise look like just lost puppies for the whole game. I don't think there's an inch of grass that man didn't cover, which is truly remarkable. And I mean, a player that I don't know if he'll make it at Chelsea. You never know. They have so many wonderful players, so many young prospects that can't seemingly get game time. I don't need to mention his name, but Tammy Abraham, look at him, for example. So it'll be interesting to see what's next in Conor Gallagher's career after having some very successful loan spells. But as well, Diagne, he managed to really make the most of that kind of space out wide. I like a lot, actually, the front three that West Brom have, funnily enough, of Robinson, Pereira, and Diagne. They're kind of free flowing. They have that fluidity and flexibility that I'm always screaming for our team to have, Dan, that we just don't seem to have. They kind of pop up here, there, and everywhere. And Diagne found them pockets in behind El Mohammadi with ease because of Elmo's positioning. Of course, Ezri slips for the goal, but for large portions of this game, Dan, I mean, in my whole match report up until obviously we scored, it was basically based around being clinical and Villa's need for having a bit more of a cutting edge. West Brom only had, I think, like 6 attempts on target and obviously scored 2, which is remarkable. That's Allardyce playing the percentages game as he does so well. But as you kind of alluded to there, Dan, there were parts of this game where West Brom really did kind of come into their own. We have to give them credit for that. But again, kind of coming back to what I was saying earlier, I don't think it was as negative. I don't think it was as doom and gloom as everyone was saying. In a game like this where it is so end to end, anything can happen. And Villa still dominated the possession. We still had the large share of chances created, shots on target, possession. We had more corners. We committed more fouls as well, which told you that Villa were really trying to win the ball back. To limit how much of the ball West Brom actually had. So there's a lot of positives to take from this game, Dan. There really is. And mainly, I feel like this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode tonight, Dan, just due to how late it is. And I mean, I've already seen that Up the Villa podcast. I've got theirs out. Other guys have, so I'll be sure to listen to them in the morning. But you guys know with the Villa Filler, you know what you're going to get. We'll get to the XG later. Don't you worry about that. But overall, I don't think there's too much that you can really complain about for this game, Dan. El Ghazi scored his 5th goal against West Brom in his career. As you pointed out, Dan, his first one at home as well, which is hard to imagine. Saying that, though, in the Championship, West Brom did kind of they terrorised us, didn't they? That first home game, that was awful. Where I think was it Kalinic that came off with a concussion.
Oh yes, yeah.
Or didn't come off.
Rod, didn't you?
Hand of Rod.
The year later. So yeah. The only success we really had against them at home was in the playoff semi. So it was nice to go out and get a little bit of doing right. We were looking to do our first league double over Baggies since 08-09, which was, funnily enough, a season where West Brom were relegated to the Championship. Didn't quite manage to do that, but we didn't manage to do the double in the Championship, and it's been that long, well over a decade since we've last won 2 games against the Baggies in a season. So they've been a bit of a bogey side for quite some time now. But no, I think considering Villa, we've only won one of our past 5 home games, well, one of our last 6 now. One of our last 6 home games. We were looking to avoid 3 consecutive Premier League home losses for the first time this season. And we've done so. And I think the concerning trend is now, mate, is that the clean sheets that we were starting to keep with some regularity towards the start and the midway point of the season have now slipped away. That's now 6 games without a clean sheet. There's no other side that are on such a streak in the Premier League at the moment. And that's a little bit of a cause for concern. But as we close out this season, we know the running is difficult. We know that the standard of opposition steps up a little bit. So I think we are going to see the Villa concede a few more goals than we are perhaps accustomed to us seeing as the season closes out. But on the whole, mate, there's one thing that's going to dominate the headlines tomorrow from this game, and it would be rude if we didn't spend a little section of this podcast talking about a goal for our man, which has been a long time coming. And as we shouted at Anthony at the start of the pod, I'd just like to give a shout out to Ian Fitzgerald, because I put that tweet on the account saying that Keinan Davis hasn't scored for us since 2017-18. It's taken him 54 Premier League games, but he's finally got that goal The first reply, Ian Fitzgerald, the Keinan podcast will be bedlam. And yes, it will, Ian. You're going to get that
Absolutely.
right now. Mate, I was delighted. When he hit the beans, I thought it was just going to be another game for him where it wasn't going to happen. But he kept going, man. And there is no Villa player that works harder, that plays with such a desire to, that is so happy to accept a role coming off the bench and often just getting garbage time, man, just getting like 5 or 10 minutes here and there, that comes on and plays his game and I made this point in WM. I was saying that in a week where football's morality and the ethics of the game have been questioned so much, and the sport that we know and love has never been so disillusioned from what we fell in love with as kids, seeing a kid like Keinan Davis, who has worked so hard for this and just plays with his heart on his sleeve, go and get that first Premier League goal in a game like this, which means so much, to go and all but relegate the Baggies, is so nice to see, mate. And it just warmed me personally, like putting all the Villa stuff away, just because these are the moments that we've fallen in love with, mate. And in a week like this, it just capped it off and sort of reminded us why we all do it, didn't it, really, I suppose?
Absolutely. And I think the goal, it just perfectly summarises what Keinan Davis is all about. And it couldn't have come at a better time, as you say, Dan. He's in a game where there really was a sort of barrage on the West Brom goal, let's be honest. Let's not beat around the bush here, Dan. Villa had 22 shots, 10 of which on target. Keinan hit the woodwork. It really felt like a do or die moment, because you can't lose this game at home to West Brom. You can't. Not this West Brom side. If we'd have lost, of course, we're going to be coming on here and saying different things about the performance, about how we felt it was. But generally, a team doesn't have 22 shots, 10 of which on target, dominate the possession, outperforming them in XG, 3.14 for Aston Villa to 1.76 from West Brom. 0.8 of that would have been attributed to the penalty as well. You don't dominate a side like that, a local rival like that, in that way and lose. It's impossible, especially if you're Aston Villa. That just does not happen, Dan. And Keinan Davis came on. He delivered the goods when it mattered. And as you say, first Premier League goal. He's not scored in so many appearances. I remember, travelling down to Brighton, Dan, and begging that the man scored, hit the post, having to drive back up to Manchester, really sad. All of these appearances, it's just nice for Keinan. It's nice for us. And, being rewarded with that kind of goal will make him feel a hell of a lot better about his role that he's playing in the team, Dan, because let's be honest, he probably deserves a bit more game time than he's getting right now, certainly off the bench. I'm not saying he's a starter by any means. I know that we're the Keinan Filler podcast, right? You guys know we're shouting for Keinan in the corner of this podcast every single time. But I know there's an equally louder sort of majority that doesn't seem to rate him. But listen, I don't care, man, because if you weren't screaming when he scored like I was, and I mean, I shouldn't have been, but I was, I let out a little scream in the press box, then I don't know, I guess football ain't for you. But shout out to Keinan Davis, man. He was doing the most. Literally, so I've when I first started going to games, Dan, I would generally live tweet a fair bit, but I think the game was on BT tonight, so I probably should have done a bit of tweeting because not everyone has BT. Didn't do that, but I kind of I keep a document where I kind of do my sort of minute by minute that helps me sort of formulate my reports and that. And I've just wrote Davis in capital letters with 62 S's. So I think I was very excited when Keinan scored that goal.
Does it all, mate?
Also, as well, not that Greg Evans listens to the podcast. I didn't speak to him or anything. He sat next to me. He knocked his laptop off. It fell off his desk. So I hope your laptop's okay, Greg. If you do listen to this, it was actually as well when West Brom scored and everyone was going, "Oh, someone got a bit excited." Obviously, I think Greg Evans is a West Brom fan, isn't he? So, but now shout out to you, Greg, doing the most Athletic. And shout out to Keinan Davis, man. I think that's probably a good note to end the podcast on, Dan. I think we've got Everton coming up soon. It's getting late night Villa fillers. They always hit different, Dan.
You love it.
We've got to get this up for you guys, and I am just going to bask in the glory of Keinan Davis finally scoring in the Premier League for Aston Villa. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please hit a like, comment your thoughts below, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. It's free. If you watch the podcast, you may as well subscribe anyway. And again, shout out to Anthony. You're the real MVP. You've really made my day. You're the reason why we do this kind of stuff. So yeah, to say thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.